At 25, I thought I knew what I wanted in a woman. Someone my age, someone who'd party with me on weekends, someone who understood my world. Then she said something that completely shattered everything I believed about attraction. One sentence that would haunt me for weeks and change my entire perspective on desire. Welcome to Secret Stories, where real confessions come to life. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to join our community of secret keepers. I'm Dylan, and this is the story of how a 45-year-old blonde librarian turned my world upside down. It started on a Tuesday. I was hunched over my laptop in the literature section of Greenfield Public Library, drowning in research for my master's thesis at Chicago State University. The place was my sanctuary. While my friends were swiping on dating apps and hitting bars, I found peace among the books. That's when I saw her, Victoria Hayes, head librarian. Mid-40s, but she didn't look it. Golden blonde hair, always perfectly styled, fitted blazers that hugged her curves, and these reading glasses that hung from a delicate chain around her neck. When she put them on, something about it was incredibly sexy. But it wasn't just her looks. It was the way she moved. Confident, graceful, like she owned every inch of that library. I'd been watching Victoria for weeks, pretending to study while actually observing the way she moved through the stacks. The way she organized books with such precision. The way she tucked that rebellious strand of blonde hair behind her ear when she was concentrating. I told myself it was just harmless appreciation. But deep down, I knew it was more. The first time we actually spoke, I was carrying way too many books. American poetry anthology, my laptop, notebooks, coffee cup. You can probably guess what happened next. Everything went crashing to the floor. The sound echoed through the quiet library like a gunshot. Papers scattered everywhere. My coffee cup rolled under a nearby table. I wanted to disappear. Need some help there? I looked up. Victoria was standing above me, and from this angle, I had a perfect view of her legs in those black stockings. My face turned red instantly. "I'm sorry," I stammered, scrambling to my feet. "I didn't mean to cause such a scene." She smiled. Not the condescending look I expected, but something warm and understanding. "Don't worry about it," she said, bending down to help me gather the papers. "Happens to the best of us." When she handed me my notes, our fingers brushed. Just for a second. But I felt electricity shoot through my entire body. "American literature?" she asked, glancing at my book. "Yeah, it's for my graduate program at Chicago State. I'm working on my master's thesis." Her eyes lit up with genuine interest. "Really? What's your focus?" Most people my age would have already tuned out. But Victoria was actually listening. Post-war American poetry, specifically how writers like Robert Lowell and Sylvia Plath used confessional poetry to process trauma. "That's fascinating," she said. "I did my undergraduate degree in English literature. Plath's work is incredibly powerful." "You studied literature?" "A lifetime ago," she laughed, "before I ended up buried under budget meetings and administrative paperwork." "This doesn't look like being buried," I said, gesturing around the library. "This looks like being surrounded by everything you love." She stared at me for a moment like no one had ever put it that way before. "You know what? You're absolutely right." We talked for another 10 minutes about books, poetry, the state of education. Victoria was incredibly well-read, with insights that challenged everything I thought I knew. When she finally excused herself to help another patron, I found myself wishing the conversation could have lasted hours. That became the pattern. Every time I visited the library, Victoria would find a reason to stop by my table. Or I'd approach the reference desk with questions I probably could have answered myself. She was different from the girls I usually dated. She had this confidence that came from experience. This way of listening that made me feel like my thoughts actually mattered. When she laughed at my jokes, it felt genuine. When she challenged my opinions, it was intellectually stimulating, not argumentative. But I also started noticing other things about her. The way her skirts hugged her curves when she walked. How her lips looked when she was concentrating. The graceful way she moved her hands when she explained something. I found myself fantasizing about what it would be like to kiss her, to run my fingers through that blonde hair. I told myself I was being ridiculous. She was 20 years older than me. Probably married. Definitely out of my league. But the fantasies persisted. The shift happened on a cold Friday evening in October. I'd been working on my thesis for hours. The library was nearly empty except for a few other late-night studiers. Victoria was at the circulation desk, but I kept catching her glancing in my direction. Around 8:30, she approached my table. "We close in about 30 minutes, she said softly. "Right, I'll start packing up." "Actually," she said, looking around to make sure no one was listening, "I have some books in the back room that might help with your thesis. They're part of a private collection we haven't cataloged yet." My pulse quickened. "I wouldn't want to impose." "You're not imposing," she said, her voice taking on a different tone. "I think you'd find them very interesting." She led me through a door marked "Staff Only" into a small storage room. The space was cramped, forcing us to stand closer than we ever had before. I could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive that made my head spin. "This one," she said, pulling out a slim volume, "is a first edition of Lowell's Life Studies." She handed it to me and our fingers lingered together on the cover. "Victoria," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Yes?" "I really enjoy our conversations, more than I probably should." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're an incredible woman. You're sophisticated, accomplished, beautiful. And I'm just a graduate student with nothing to offer someone like you." "Dylan," she said, stepping closer, "how old do you think I am?" "I don't know, mid-40s? I'm 45. And you're what, mid-20s? 25. She was standing very close now, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in her blue eyes. 20 years isn't a lifetime, Dylan. But it's significant, I protested. You're established, mature. You probably want things that I can't even understand yet. She was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. Then she said the words that would change everything. "Men like you don't notice women like me." I stared at her, confused. "What do you mean?" "I mean exactly what I said. Men like you, young, attractive, full of potential, you don't see women like me. You see the librarian, the older woman, the responsible adult. But you don't see me as someone worth wanting." "That's not true," I said, my voice stronger now. "I see you. I see how passionate you are about literature. I see how kind you are to everyone who comes in here. I see how beautiful you are." "Do you?" she asked, stepping even closer. "Do you really see me, Dylan?" The air between us was electric. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. "Yes," I whispered. "I see you." She reached up and touched my face, her fingers cool against my heated skin. "I've been hoping you would—" "Victoria." "I know this is crazy," she said. "I know people would think I'm having some kind of midlife crisis. But I've been thinking about you, Dylan. More than I should." "You have?" "Every time you come in here, I find myself looking forward to seeing you. When you're not here, I think about our conversations, about the way you listen when I talk, about how you make me feel like I'm more than just the librarian." I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we should stop pretending there's nothing between us. Maybe we should find out what this is. What if people think you're just curious about being with someone younger?" She smiled. "And what if they think you're just curious about being with someone older?" "I don't think that's what this is," I said honestly. "Neither do I. But there's only one way to find out." I looked into her eyes, seeing vulnerability alongside the confidence. "Victoria, would you have dinner with me? Not here, not as student and librarian, but as a woman and a man who are attracted to each other?" Her smile was radiant. "I thought you'd never ask." 3 hours later, we were sitting across from each other at a small bistro downtown. She'd changed into a black dress that hugged her curves perfectly. The conversation flowed even more easily than it had in the library, but now there was an undercurrent of something deeper. "I have to ask," I said over dessert. "What made you think I hadn't noticed you?" She laughed, but there was vulnerability in it. "Experience. I've been divorced for 5 years, Dylan. I've watched men my age chase after women half their age. I've watched younger men treat women like me as invisible." "Well, they're idiots. Are they? Or are they just being honest about what they want?" What do you want, Victoria? She was quiet for a moment, swirling the wine in her glass. I want to feel desired again. Not just needed or respected, but actually wanted. I want someone to see me as a woman, not just as a role I play. And I want to be that someone. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. We'd meet for coffee before my classes, take long walks through the park on weekends, spend hours talking about everything and nothing. Victoria was unlike any woman I'd ever been with. Confident without being intimidating, experienced without being jaded, beautiful in a way that seemed to deepen the more I knew her. She told me about her marriage, how it ended when her ex-husband decided he wanted to find himself with a 25-year-old from his office. She spoke about her fears of growing older alone, her dreams of maybe writing a novel someday. I shared my own insecurities about the future, my uncertainty about whether I was on the right path, my fear that I was too young to know what I really wanted, but it was more than emotional intimacy. There was a physical attraction that grew stronger every time we met. The way she'd touch my arm when she laughed, how I'd find excuses to brush her hand when we walked, the way we'd stand just a little too close when we talked. One evening, as I walked her to her car after dinner, she turned to me. "Dylan, I need you to know something." "What's that?" "I'm not looking for a fling. I'm not trying to recapture my youth or prove something to myself. If we're going to do this, I need to know that you're serious." I stopped walking and turned to face her. "Victoria, I know this probably sounds crazy coming from someone my age, but I've never felt this way about anyone. You challenge me. You inspire me. You make me want to be better." "Good," she said, stepping closer. "Because I'm falling for you, Dylan, really falling, and it terrifies me." I reached up and cupped her face in my hands. "It terrifies me too, but I don't want to run from it." When I kissed her, it was like everything I'd been holding back finally found its release. She responded immediately, her arms winding around my neck. The age difference, the potential complications, the opinions of others, none of it mattered. There was just her, just us, just this moment of perfect connection. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "Come home with me," she whispered. That night, I discovered that maturity and experience were incredibly attractive qualities. Victoria knew exactly what she wanted and wasn't afraid to ask for it. She was confident in her body, generous with her affections, completely present in a way that made me feel like I was the only person in the world. Afterward, as we lay together in her bed, she traced patterns on my chest with her finger. "I have something to confess," she said. "What's that?" "I've been engineering our encounters at the library, choosing books to organize near where you study, timing my rounds to coincide with your visits, finding excuses to start conversations." I laughed, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "I know. You know. Victoria, you reorganized the poetry section 4 times in 3 weeks. Either you're incredibly indecisive about the Dewey Decimal System, or you were trying to get my attention." She blushed, looking younger than her 45 years. "I'm out of practice with all this. I wasn't sure if you were interested or just being polite." "I was interested," I said, pulling her closer. "I just didn't think I had a chance." "Why not?" "Because you're Victoria Hayes, head librarian. Sophisticated, beautiful, accomplished. And I'm just Dylan, a broke grad student who lives on ramen and spends Friday nights reading poetry." She propped herself up on her elbow to look at me. "Dylan, you're not just anything. You're intelligent, passionate, kind. You see beauty in things that most people your age completely ignore. Do you know how rare that is? Is it? Trust me, it is. Most guys I dated when I was your age were more interested in partying than poetry. More concerned with getting laid than getting to know me. And most women I've dated were more interested in Instagram than intellectual conversation." She smiled. "So maybe we're both exactly what the other one needs." 6 months later, we were inseparable. The age difference that had once seemed so significant now felt irrelevant. We'd navigated the awkwardness of meeting each other's friends, dealt with the occasional stares and whispered comments. Victoria introduced me to her teenage daughter, Emma, who was surprisingly cool about the whole thing. "At least he's not some middle-aged creep going through a midlife crisis," Emma said with teenage bluntness. "And he makes you happy, which is more than Dad ever did." My friends were initially skeptical, but they came around once they saw how Victoria brought out the best in me. I was more focused on my studies, more confident in my opinions, more comfortable in my own skin. You know, I told her one evening as we watched the sunset from her back porch, "You were wrong about something." "What's that?" "You said men like me don't notice women like you. But the truth is, I couldn't stop noticing you. From the very first day, you were the most interesting person in that library." She leaned against me, fitting perfectly under my arm. "I'm glad I was wrong." "So am I." People often ask me what it's like dating someone 20 years older. But the truth is, when you connect with someone on a real level, intellectually, emotionally, physically, age becomes just another number. Victoria didn't make me feel young or old. She made me feel like the best version of myself. Have you or someone close to you ever experienced an unexpected connection like this? Sometimes life surprises us with the most beautiful relationships in the most unlikely circumstances. Share your story in the comments below. We love hearing from our community.